Hello everyone, Coming Clean here. The characters from the first Skylanders game, Spyro's Adventure, are classic characters and many players hold them in high regard. With the release of the fourth game, Skylanders Trap Team, special, powerful, Eons Elite versions of these characters were released, and what a genius move it was. Or was it? Let's find out. You may know that to encourage players to buy new figures for the newer Skylanders games, characters from the previous titles became less and less powerful the more games that were released. If you use Skylanders from the first game, Spyro's Adventure, in the last game, Skylanders Imaginators, you will quickly come to the realization that they are utterly useless. Fans of course wanted to play as their favorites from the first game, and as a result, alongside the release of the fourth game, Skylanders Trap Team, Eons Elite saw the light of day. As powered-up versions of their original counterpart with both increased damage and hit points, they were all of a sudden viable to use again. It may all seem like a perfect implementation, but to me it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Allow me to get a bit into the specifics. Let's start with the good things. Spyro's Adventure released more than 10 years ago and left quite a legacy, so it's hard to be completely objective about the game now. The game was essentially a colorful dungeon crawler on mainly floating islands with light RPG elements and plenty of playable characters. The control scheme was very streamlined, which made it easier for players to switch back and forth between Skylanders, something that the game frequently encouraged you to do. While the game can't exactly be described to be complex from a gameplay perspective, there was a sense of progression as you level up your characters and unlock new abilities. Some upgrades also altered the physical appearance of the Skylanders, and the character definitely felt more powerful and versatile as you progress through the levels. Even though the series has evolved over the years, I still enjoy swooping over the maps with Spyro, trapping enemies and bombarding them with Zook, and emerging from the ground with a body slam with Terrafin. I can definitely see why players felt the demand to do this all over again in the newer, more technically impressive games. You know, without getting your butt kicked by the most basic of enemies, of course. To answer these players, the Eons Elite came along. New versions of the classic Skylanders from Spyro's Adventure, up to 3 times as powerful as their original version. As you can see, they are more than capable of taking care of some of the tougher enemies in Skylanders Imaginators, a game where the very powerful Sensei characters were in full focus. Once again, I can soar through the skies, or at least slightly above the ground, as my boy Spyro, whose momentum-based playstyle I enjoy so much. I actually think that this is a way of approaching the game that I haven't really seen being replicated in any of the sequels, which is part of the reason I think Eons Elite is such a terrific idea. On another note, Skylanders in general, with some exceptions of course, became bigger and bigger over the years. So to the point that the large imposing body became synonymous with a high level of power. It's therefore very satisfying to wreak havoc with the original core Skylanders and their smaller sizes as you dish out more damage than visually seem to make sense. But I mentioned that I don't like everything about Eons Elite. It all basically comes down to character complexity. Since the second game, Skylanders Giants, both developers Vicarious Visions and Toys R Us had taken steps to improve the complexity of the control scheme while still keeping it easy to understand. After all, they wanted players to be able to grow as gamers alongside the Skylanders series without feeling bored, at the same time as new players could easily get into the games. This resulted in keeping the original control scheme, where only 1 jump and 3 attack buttons were used, but adding various types of inputs where mashing and holding buttons had different effects, for example, and also many instances of abilities synergizing with each other. Being the last 3 games, both Trap Team and Imaginators, and of course Superchargers in between, had the hardest emphasis on these aspects. Just to give a few examples so you know what I'm talking about. Tough Luck can sneak through the grass she creates with various abilities, making her invisible from enemies. Gear Shift can use an ability to switch between 3 distinct different fighting styles. Wolfgang can hold his normal attack to make a leap and unleash a more powerful shot, and also slide to make a ring of speakers that explodes if you slide out of it. Dr. Crankcase can use his spin attack to make his bots go into seek and destroy mode, and to splat his piles of goo on his enemies. When talking about Skylanders Imaginators specifically, the opinions about the game vary for various reasons. The consensus, however, seems to be that the Sensei characters themselves and their intricate movesets are one of the game's highlights. The movesets from the original cast from the first game can't be described as bad, but when compared to the senseis and trap masters for example, it can feel a bit dated and less versatile. Add to that the ridiculous amount of hit points and general high damage output of the Eons Elite characters, I sometimes can't shake the feeling that I'm playing with overpowered characters that are less fun to use when compared to many of the newer additions to the Skylanders roster. More powerful doesn't necessarily mean more fun. But then again, all Skylanders games encourage you to frequently switch characters, so you always have that to fall back on if you ever feel bored. To sum things up, I think that the implementation of Eons Elite was great on paper, and it is fun to re-experience them in the newer games, but I also think they maybe made them too powerful, and they also feel a bit bland to play as when compared to other newer Skylanders. But these are just my opinions, and I would love to hear what you think. Do you like the Eons Elite, or do you think they should have been implemented in a different way, with newer movesets for example? Please let me know in the comments. Also, feel free to check out my other Skylanders content and my other videos as well. That is however it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Coming Clean, and I will see you next time. Take care!